we go. So this class is on detox, which is a topic I love, and it is something that I have done in different ways on an ongoing basis or on a more like 10-day detox or a 30-day detox sort of basis throughout the years. And I always get a lot of benefit. And I wanted to put this class up. And by the way, I think I know all of you, but my name is Brooke, if I haven't met you. And I am recording this class. So if there's anybody that you know that can't be here and they'd like the recording, I will be sending that out to everybody who signed up who's not here. And I'll probably send it out on my email list too. So just let me know if you want a copy of that. I can give you the link of the recording. I also wanted to let you know that at the end, if you can stick with me to the end of the class, I have some exciting things I'm going to share with you, because this is a really interesting time. And when all this started, I felt very called to kind of provide any support I can to just the general public and to all of you who I've known for a while, in any way that you need right now, because as somebody who is also in a counseling degree and finishing that up, and then works in wellness and nutrition, there's just so much going on right now for people on an emotional level, on a health level. And so if there are topics that you would like in the future, let me know, because I will be doing some webinars like this and putting out whatever content that would be supportive for you right now. So who is feeling like your food routines have gone a little bit haywire with being at home more? You can raise your hand or you can type in the chat box. Yep, I see some hands going up. I will put my hand up too, because I definitely felt that. And it doesn't matter if it is, something that I do or not. I definitely felt the changes being at home. I've also heard from some people that it's easier, which makes it, might give you an eye roll if you just raise your hand. But also some people are finding it to be a little bit easier because they're not necessarily able to pick up some of the foods that they may have picked up when they were out in the world. Does anybody find that to be the case? Saw a hand go up. So yeah, we've got some new challenges, some new kind of silver linings. And so we'll talk through all of that. Okay, let's jump in. I introduced myself. I also want to share a little bit about how detox has changed my life. So one big thing, and the reason I put this photo here, is that it has, every time I do it, I get more energy. And that is probably the biggest value for me, is how it increases my energy. The second thing I would say is that I find myself eating better for months to come. So I had a really successful detox in October, and it carried all the way through the holidays. And I noticed that I was not even wanting some of the foods that were out in the world throughout the holidays that I would normally maybe have felt more pulled to pick up and eat. And I just felt more in balance, and I felt really good and didn't want to kind of feel my energy start dropping from getting off track with food. So I always noticed that as a really big benefit as well. I think a lot of you that are on this maybe have kind of heard my backstory, but I always open up classes by kind of sharing that as well, because that's how I got into what I do now and why I'm so passionate about sharing this with people. So the first bite of food my mom gave me sent me to the hospital. It was a bite of plain yogurt, and as she puts it, every orifice started streaming in my body, and I reacted to it. The doctor said I would probably always have allergies and that they might come and go. And for now, just avoid dairy. And so that's what we did. And I didn't eat dairy. And throughout the years, that doctor was right. I had a lot of allergies, and I would just break out in hives a lot. I remember just popping Benadryl and moving on with my day. And that was just normal. And back then, we didn't really know as much as we know now about food sensitivities and gut health and the interplay between all of those things. And so I just took medication and figured that this was just life for me and dealt with it. Come college, I started having more anxiety. And I think I probably had had that before, but I hadn't really been able to identify it. I definitely had, um, like stress eating and issues kind of around food that started developing throughout that time. And when I would eat sugar, it felt like I could just eat a ton of it. Like I craved it like crazy. And when I did eat it, just felt like I wanted to eat more of it. So major sugar cravings, more anxiety. I started to notice like stomach problems. I hadn't noticed that before. I had the allergy issue, but I started having gut problems, bloating and things like that, and constipation. And then what really got me concerned was I started having this like shortness of breath and like felt like my heart was beating really fast. And I went into an audition one day. I was an actress at the time, went into an audition and felt like I couldn't breathe, felt like I couldn't sing. And I bombed the audition and I walked out and I cried myself home on the subway. And then that night I started looking up people I could go to figure out how to get all this in order, because I could see that over time these like new symptoms were cropping up and I didn't understand how they were all connected, but it seemed like I needed to get this under control. So I started doing some research and I found a nutritionist who talked about sugar cravings, and she talked about gut health, and she talked about yeast overgrowth and how that could cause gut health issues and sugar cravings and brain issues like mood problems. And I ended up going to her and we did a stool test. We did a test to see what was going on in my gut, and I had a lot of yeast overgrowth among, a lot of dysbiosis, which is an imbalance in gut bacteria. And once we started working on that, within 30 days, the tightness, like rapid heartbeat feeling that I had went away. And that like chest tightness and like feeling of anxiety subsided. And that was the first thing to go away, just like it was the last thing to come. And I won't go into the rest, but basically over the years, it took a little longer to unravel the rest of it. But within a year, I realized I wasn't breaking out in hives anymore. And I all of a sudden one day realized like, wow, I haven't reacted to food I've eaten in a long time. And I changed my diet quite a bit and identified some food sensitivities and made a lot of changes, and was really kind of surprised by how quickly I started feeling better. And so that kind of started this whole journey into health. And soon after that, I started doing detox programs at least once a year. Now I try to do them at least 3 times a year. And spring is a really awesome time to do a detox. And what I notice in regards to gut health is that our liver function, gallbladder function, gut health, right? It's all very interconnected. And so when we do a detox, we are also supporting gut health. And we're going to get into kind of how all this works so it makes sense for you. And the reason, again, I have this photo up is that I'm around these 6 kids, super grateful to be around these kids. A lot, 3 of them are mine. 3 of them live a half a mile away from me, and they're my nephews and niece. And they take a lot of energy to be around those kids. So that to me is my motivation among just life goals and career goals and needing energy to do those things. But definitely all those kids are my kind of reason for getting up and taking steps to be healthier every day so that I can be present and be able to be there for them and enjoy it myself, because we all know how hard it is to enjoy things in life when we run out of energy. So what is your reason? You might think about that. If you want to share it in the chat box, you can, but what's your reason for showing up on this webinar? For wanting to improve your health. And that's important to stay in touch with, because it's what helps us with every little choice, every day. So let's talk about 3 detox tactics that often fail. One is juice fasts with lots of fruit juice. So this was one of the things I did early on, years ago. because I'd heard about juice fasting and better sleep and perfect poop. I love that is your reason. Yes, sleep is huge. I noticed that too. So with this first juice fasting, it's not to say that juice fasting can't be a helpful thing. There is a time and a place for a lot of different approaches. And I would say vegetable juicing is different than what I'm talking about here. If we're doing a whole lot of vegetable juices with very little fruit, but if we're doing a lot of juices with a lot of fruit, that can be a little bit difficult for blood sugar. And everybody's different when it comes to our blood sugar balance. So for some people, they might do a little bit better with that. Others might not do quite as well. The cons of this is that there's usually too much, as I mentioned, too much sugar, so it can dysregulate sugar. The other issue is that if we're doing, let's say like a 10-day juice fast, we're going to talk about the nutrients needed for detox, and this doesn't have a lot of them. And so we may be, with the best of intentions, jumping on something detoxifying, but then we're not getting the nutrients that we need for the detox pathways in our body to work effectively. More fruit is coming into season now, but there's still some, it's still getting cold in places like here in Kansas City. We just had a cold spell. And so we don't want to eat fruit out of season, especially with everything going on. It's better to eat like warming foods and things like that to stay healthy. We're going to start getting into summer, or if you're somewhere where it's already quite warm, then you may already have more fruits in season, but that's something to be aware of. A second detox tactic that often fails is detoxing and only changing eating habits. So who here has been guilty of, and I shouldn't say guilty because it's, it's not like a shame thing, right? It's just we all do this. But yeah, and I can raise my hand too. But of like eating the right things, but not taking extra time to rest or taking extra time to do all of the lifestyle mindfulness type of approaches that would help our body detox. And I did that the last time I did a detox. So I did one that was really great in October. And I will tell you, I had a group that I did in January. We did a Vibrant Health Reset detox group. It was really fun. And I did it with everybody because I wanted to join the group, but I was too busy at the time. And so I really noticed that I did not get the benefit that I would have gotten had I been less busy and really focusing on sleep and all of those things. And it brings up a point too that I started thinking about detox right now because we have more time potentially. I know not everybody does, but a lot of us are home more and we have more time to focus on these things. So it may be a really good time to detox, even if that means you're focusing your detox on thoughts and lifestyle approaches and not as much food. Because it all counts. And so we'll talk about what that looks like. Another point here is that stress shuts down digestion. So when we go into our sympathetic nervous system, which is what we often refer to as fight or flight, I always call it fight, flight, or freeze, we have a rise in cortisol. Cortisol, when we shift into that nervous system, our cortisol goes up, we send blood out to the extremities so that we can run and get away from whatever danger we're in. And if we're about to be eaten, right? If we are running from a predator, we don't need to feed ourselves. Our body is going to prioritize safety first, and then we're going to digest and feed our body next. So that's something to keep in mind, is that when we are in a stress response, we are not secreting hydrochloric acid and enzymes and all of the things needed for digestion. A little point on immune health too, because that's kind of top of mind for everybody right now, is that there's something in the gut called secretory IgA. And that is an immunosecretion in our gut that protects the gut lining. It's part of our immune system in the digestive tract. And that gets suppressed through high cortisol also. So if we are stressed, we are dampening our immune system and we are shutting down digestion. And so if we're detoxing and we're focusing on all of these processes, digestion is really important. And so we also want to be doing stress transformation tactics, getting enough sleep, all of that. Those lifestyle factors are necessary to help us bind and remove toxins, and of course, give the body time to rest and repair. The third detox tactic that often fails is eating foods without making sure that we are getting the nutrients necessary for phase 1, 2, and 3 detoxification. And so we can see here that there's these 3 phases. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And in phase 1, I like this little chart because it shows you the cofactors or the nutrients needed for phase 1 detox. So, B vitamins, sulforaphane, we can get sulforaphane in broccoli sprouts, folate. Some people need methylated folate, depending on your genetics, glutathione. Then we have phase 2 nutrients, and those are a lot of amino acids. And we're going to learn here in a moment that when toxins enter phase 1, they get actually a little more harmful to the body, and they need to go through phase 2 to be made safe for removal. And so if we're, say, doing a juice fast and we're not getting these amino acids in sufficient amounts, then we may not actually be able to go into phase 2. And there's the possibility, if somebody's very high in phase 1 cofactors and low in phase 2, that we could do more damage than help. Phase 3, there are some herbs that are supportive of phase 3, and there's also a lot of antioxidants you can see here that are also necessary in this whole process. And so we'll move on to the next slide. The overall definition of detoxification is just the process of removing toxins, which are, substances that are poisonous or problematic for the body from the metabolic processes of a person. Where it's the process of removing these waste products from the body. It happens throughout the gut, the liver, and at the cellular level. So I often hear people say that they need to clean out their liver or their organs. And I know what they're going for when they say that, but we don't actually store toxins in our organs. So it's a little bit of a kind of a myth that gets thrown about in the way we speak about detox. And if we did store toxins in our organs, it would put us at a much higher risk for problems than storing them where we do store them, which is in our fat cells. So when we, for example, eat animal products, if we don't know how those animals were raised, then eating fat, like eating people, we talk a lot about dairy. So full fat dairy versus non-fat or low fat dairy. And to me, it's always dependent on what is the quality of that dairy and where is it coming from? Because that speaks a lot to how healthy the fat is in that food. Because we do store our toxins in our fat. The gut is our first line of defense. We often think of, like, when we eat something, that food is going in our body, but it's not actually in our body. We're like a big donut, right? When we eat, the food goes in, and it's not actually in our body until our digestive, all of the immune system and the intestinal lining decides that it's going in. And so we have a lot of defense throughout the gut to keep the good things in and keep the bad things out. Our liver is another focus, like a organ that's involved in detoxification. It metabolizes carbohydrates, fats, protein. We can store fat in our liver. We don't want to store too much. That's what happens when people get fatty liver. But we can store glycogen, that's stored sugar in our liver and in our muscles. The liver aids in digestion and absorption of fats and fat-soluble vitamins. It stores bile. We need bile to emulsify and break down our fats and thus absorb our fat-soluble vitamins. Our liver metabolizes and breaks down hormones. It breaks down red blood cells, helps regulate our blood sugar. We also store some nutrients like fat-soluble vitamins in our liver, iron, B12, and has some protein stores. So our liver is a very busy organ. Like I said, it's a big part of detoxifying, but we don't actually store toxins there. Then we have the kidneys. They are also important for detoxification. They help with the acid base balance, regulate electrolytes, blood pressure regulation. They help purify our blood of chemical substances, excrete urea and ammonia, hormone production happens there. And so all of these are areas that we focus on for detox. So toxins metabolize starting in the mouth and through to the stomach, and then they can diffuse through to the blood. So that's one way that toxins enter our body. That could be in our food. It could be through something that got on our food, right? It could be sticking our hands in our mouth that touch something. So that's one way. Another way is through our skin. And when they go through our skin, they get absorbed through our skin and then go into our blood. And toxins that are absorbed through the skin are often more damaging than when we absorb things orally, because they don't go straight to the liver. When we take things in and they go through our digestive tract, they go directly to our liver, as opposed to when we take them in through our mouth. When we take things in through our mouth, they go directly to our liver, but when they get absorbed through our skin, they don't. And so they can circulate through our blood a little bit longer, which can cause more issues before we actually start detoxifying them. So, home care products, body care products are a really big source of environmental toxicity that we want to pay attention to because of how they absorb. We also can have kind of endotoxemia, where there's cells and dying bacteria that is in the body, and we need to release those from the body, and they get released into the blood and can cause problems before we're able to clear them out of the body. Our liver will uptake and excrete different toxins. The kidney also uptakes and excretes some. And then we may also excrete in our sweat, urine, and feces. So here are the 3 phases to detoxification. And I remember when I first learned this, I thought it was so cool because I had no idea that, there were all these complex processes involved. Phase 1 is transformation. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a phase that can actually cause those toxins to be more harmful to the body. So they get converted into a form that can be more problematic. So we really want these to go into phase 2. When we talk about nutrient support for detoxification, I will tend to use something that is a little bit more well-rounded so that we're getting support for all of the phases and not just phase 1, right? It would be more likely that we would support phase 2 and not phase 1, or support both, as opposed to supporting phase 1 without supporting phase 2. So just something to keep in mind when we take like single herbs or nutrients is that sometimes we want to make sure we're supporting all the phases, unless we know per a lab that a certain nutrient is low, and then it's maybe a little different. Phase 2 is conjugation. That's when we transform that into, we conjugate that into something that is now more safer for removal from the body. Then we have phase 3, which is the actual transportation out of the body. So we need nutrients now to get toxins out of the body. We need bile flow to be effective. We need digestion working well. And then we also have cellular detoxification, and that occurs during times of fasting. I will probably do another class coming up on fasting because I've played around a lot more with that myself over the last year, and I'm doing it more with clients, and it's also a really effective way for supporting health, especially depending on what somebody's working on. And I should say too that cellular detoxification is called autophagy. So if you ever hear that word autophagy, that is basically this process by which Um, the you break down like old waste products in the body, cells that need to be broken down and cleared out. That happens. That sort of repair and cleanup process can happen while we are fasting more effectively. So I always like to share a case study so that I can kind of give you some idea of some symptoms that someone might have, some complaints that they might have, and then how detox can help them and address some different things that may seem not connected, but can all be helped through a detox. This is a real client of mine, but I changed her name to Deborah for this public class. So Deborah is a 45-year-old female. Her main complaints were brain fog, fatigue, having irregular bowel movements, feeling irritable. She was just feeling like going to the computer and having trouble focusing was a big issue. Feeling like she could sleep for a lot of hours at night, and it was kind of like hard to wake up in the morning. But then throughout the day, maybe a little bit because of the fatigue, was feeling kind of irritable, and definitely had, just really irregular bowel movements. So main goal was energy throughout the day and be able to sit down at the computer and think and focus. So we did do for Deborah an organic acids test, which is a test I really love. I've done a few on myself throughout the years, and I always get a lot of good feedback. I would say, there's all kinds of different functional lab tests, and organic acids we use a lot when we're assessing for how somebody, like an overall screening. It's a really good overall screening because we get some markers that tell us a little bit about gut health. We get some markers that tell us about detox, nutrients, like some nutrients, and if they may be low. So it's kind of a nice overview of a lot of different things that can be going on for someone. So when we did that, and that's kind of why she chose that, because we could have done a stool test, and we could have done maybe a SIBO test, could have done a hormone test for sure with the fatigue and all of that. But in her wanting to just do one kind of overall test to see where to start, we chose organic acids. And then we knew we could always go down, a road to look further depending on what improved based upon what we found. So she had a lot of yeast overgrowth on that test. There was some bacterial overgrowth. On an organic acids, we do know if it's Clostridia is a type of bacteria. We have some markers for other bacteria, but we don't always know what. We just know that there is some. So she had general high markers for bacteria. Some elevated mitochondrial markers. And so those mitochondria are the energy producing organelles in the cells. And without healthy mitochondrial function, definitely energy can take a hit. So when we see those out of range, we want to address that. And then we saw that there was low glutathione. And if we go back, see if I can, we go back here, we look at this picture, we can see that glutathione is really important for phase 1. And glutathione is used in some other, it's not listed here. So I need to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's involved in another phase as well. But it's big in phase 1. So she was low in that, which tells us we need to get that up. And so we see if I have it here. Basically what we did was we did do a kind of a 10-day detox approach to really clean up her diet. So we did that. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And then we got her with some liposomal glutathione. We took some things for the yeast and the bacteria, some antifungal, antimicrobial herbs, and CoQ10 and carnitine for the mitochondria. We did acetyl L-carnitine to kind of help with the brain, with the focus for addressing the mitochondrial markers, and worked on lifestyle and all of that as well. And after that, after a 3-month protocol, Deborah's energy was 70% improved, which was awesome. That's great after 3 months. There's oftentimes, if we can get a majority better in a short time, then the rest we sort of work on over time. And then life happens like this, right? And we sort of come and go and we have to work on things. And who would have known, months ago what our life would be like now? So we can't ever really predict exactly what's going to happen. All right, let's talk through some other things beyond that was one example and some things that we did. Here are some, we're just going to talk through some overall detoxification strategies. So, how to limit environmental toxins. One is looking at your food and buying non-GMO and organic when you can. This EWG, it's ewg.org. You can also go on there and you can download the Dirty Dozen or the Clean 15. The Dirty Dozen are the top 12 foods that have the most pesticide or herbicide residues on them. The Clean 15 are the top 15 foods that have the least. So if you are kind of budget shopping, you can go purchase your conventional produce off of the Clean 15 list and your organic produce off of the Dirty Dozen list. So that's one way to start doing this in a budget, maybe friendly way. Another thing to consider is that there are studies looking at the amount of nutrients, of specific nutrients in organic versus non-organic foods. So one study found in spinach, 20% more vitamin C in organic spinach versus conventional spinach. So we don't always see that when we're shopping, we just see the price tag. I've always wished that they would have like a number next to the food that also shows you the nutrient density, because if we could see that this food's 20% more nutrient dense than this food, but it's not 20%, if we could see that this one's 20 times more nutrient dense than this food, but it's not 20 times more expensive, then we might, be thinking about things differently as we're shopping and choosing what to spend our money on. So those are shopping non-GMO and organic. We can avoid some of those pesticides and herbicide residues that we get on food, which the body has to then detoxify. In body care, we could do a whole class on toxins in body care products. If you're interested in that, let me know. I would say that I know what to get and not to get, but it's not as much my area of expertise as nutrition topics. But it's a big one. So buying things that are, paraben, phthalate free, triclosan free. There's kind of a whole list of things that are very toxic in body care that we want to avoid. In-home care and cleaning products are also very toxic. So picking things that are non-toxic, that don't have those harsh chemicals, because even when we clean with those, even if we're wearing gloves and trying to keep them off of our skin, we're still inhaling those toxins. For those of you that are more sensitive to those things, especially when you stop using them, you can really tell. I now will get a headache if I'm around like a really newly cleaned space with regular cleaning products. In mind, this is also one we could do a whole class on, and I would be happy to do a class. I was thinking about doing something kind of on like negative thoughts and fear versus optimism and hope, and like how that affects our body, because it does in many ways. And right now I think it's challenging for different people going through different things. So our thoughts affect our hormones. They affect our gut health in turn by affecting our hormones. They affect our immune system. This idea that our mind is separate from our body has been pretty well debunked. And we know that our thoughts affect us both biochemically and also by, just in how we feel in relation to the world around us. So our brains want to solve problems. We're good at it. it's what makes us human. We have this higher level complex thinking, and we can identify problems and we want to solve them. And in so doing, it can lead us down a path that often can lead to fear or negativity because we're thinking about a problem instead of thinking about maybe a solution, or not even a solution, but just having intention, and call it what you want: faith, trust, belief that everything will be okay, and that a certain thing will happen in the end, but we can't know when, we can't know how. We just kind of have to trust that it will all work out, right? And that's really hard because that's more abstract. It's not some specific thing that we can put our brain to and start solving it, you know? And so I bring that up because right now there is so much uncertainty, and that I've found myself in many conversations where we're like trying to solve the problems, right? And of course we're going to do that because we're humans. But if we spend all of our time in that space, notice if it brings up feelings of negativity or feelings of fear, or, you know, just discomfort, and acknowledge that that's there. And then if we focus back on just presence, mindfulness, gratitude, we usually can find ourselves more in hope, and more of an optimistic outlook and mindset. So if you can type in the chat box, let me know if you would like more discussion on that topic, because I would be happy to do a class on that. And I can say I've been also guilty of, you know, working too hard and not thinking the type of thoughts that are detoxifying when I'm doing a detox. And so something to keep in mind as you process through all of this. Some more detoxifying steps: lifestyle approaches. We talked, you know, about where our mind is at. Also, what are we doing with our body? So exercise, what type of exercise? If we're really doing a detox, usually we don't want to do high intensity exercise during a detox because it might be a bit much when we're trying to relax and repair and rest. So yoga, I know we've got a Pilates teacher on here, so Pilates, you know, long walks, hikes, getting out in nature, all of that would be really great. If detox is a regular part of your life and your body is, you know, more accustomed to it, then you might be able to stay with more intense workouts. Can be very detoxifying, but just Tai Chi, yeah, that's awesome. That's a great suggestion. So yeah, all those things that are a little more restful, and sometimes those practices like Tai Chi that are also practicing, you know, a more mindful type of exercise can be really helpful too. Baths, like Epsom salt baths, breath work types of practices, meditation. We can also rebounding, when we talk about exercise, like if you have a trampoline or you can do any rebounding, is great for moving the lymph. Getting enough sleep is important. So, you know, aiming at least for 7 to 9 hours per night. You may need more during a detox. Dry skin brushing is another one. So anything that moves lymph is really helpful. Dry skin brushing is, you know, you have get the brush and then you're going in little circles from your extremities all the way up towards your heart. That can help with lymph. I really like hydrotherapy, which you can just do in the shower. And it's basically taking getting the water really, really hot, as hot as you can handle it, and then turning it as cold as you can handle it for 30 seconds. And then back to hot for 3 minutes and cold 30 seconds, hot 3 minutes, cold 30 seconds. So you do 3 rounds of that. That really gets the lymphatic system moving as well. You can also do apple cider vinegar or ginger in a bath, just as you could do an Epsom salt bath. Body work, it's harder to get that right now, massage or acupuncture, but once that is available, that is really helpful. And just any sort of stress transformation or management type approaches. With food and drinks, we want to eat the rainbow and eat ideally 7 to 11 servings per day of vegetables and maybe 2 to 3 servings of fruit per day. And this can be just the rainbow, right? Lots of variety, lots of color. Some really good vegetables, detoxifying vegetables are dandelion greens, leafy greens, lemon juice in water, beets are awesome, and then high fiber vegetables and fruits and berries. Berries have a lot of antioxidants. Want to eat lean and naturally raised proteins like fish and poultry, lots of filtered water. Aim for a moderate amount of healthy fats. You can get that from cold water, fatty fish that's wild caught, olive oil, nuts and seeds, avocados. I should say too, you can do this can be a vegan approach, a vegetarian approach, or you can use portions of animal protein. The main thing with any of this is that you look at the list of nutrients and that you're getting a variety and you're getting the nutrients you need to be able to detox. So there's a lot of, depending on what sort of diet works best for you, you can adjust this to fit. Fermented foods and bone broth are great for gut support. So those you can add in. I will say as far as animal protein that if you have blood sugar that easily drops, or if you have insulin resistance, I would focus more on, a lower carb kind of approach, having a lot of vegetables and maybe eating a bit of animal protein at your meals. If you don't really have those issues, then you could drop the animal protein and make it a vegan detox and might see some different benefits there. So that's kind of one way I'll start to adjust it. Just kind of depends what you have going on. Some foods to avoid are alcohol, caffeine, refined sugars, and processed grain products like bread, cereals, pastas, bagels, all of that. Heavy and rich foods like creams and chocolate and greasy food and fried food. And then processed food like deli meat and hot dogs, frozen meals, artificial sweeteners and colors and flavors. So I want to pull most of that out when we do a detox. As far as cooking methods, this time of year, you can start to do more raw foods. So if that feels good for you, start to do more of that. You can also stick with soups and lightly cooked or steamed vegetables. Use extra virgin olive oil and avocado oil or coconut oil if you're cooking. Make sure with olive oil it's not high temperature cooking. If you're going to juice, stick more with the veggie juices, and that can be really awesome to add that on too. And then with supplements, just to throw out some, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but milk thistle, alpha lipoic acid, NAC, calcium D-glucarate, ginger, licorice, dandelion, probiotics. There's a lot of nutrients that can be supportive, and I'll kind of circle back to that in a moment. All right. I don't know that I'd say always it's the number one antioxidant, but it sounds exciting if I say the number one antioxidant. So for detox, and it is up there, I'd say is glutathione. It's a really powerful antioxidant. It's necessary for phase 1 detox. It reduces oxidative stress, so it could also go and be listed under that other area on that previous slide. It protects against damage that occurs with alcohol, heavy metals, etc. So a lot of people have talked about drinking more wine right now, and I've had more glasses of wine right now. So always I keep glutathione around, and if I do have a glass of wine, I'll have some glutathione to just help detoxify and support my the systems in my body with that. Also supporting healthy immune function. I like liposomal glutathione. That's absorbed really well. And I prefer the Quicksilver brand. There's also Designs for Health, and those are both really good for glutathione. So as we start to kind of wrap up at least the content for today, post if you have any questions on all of that in the chat box. I hope you picked up some new kind of tips and tricks, or reminded anyway of some things to do to support detox. And I mentioned at the beginning that with everything going on, I have had so many shifts in my home life. And one of those is that, there's so many people who've gotten laid off or aren't working right now. And my husband's one of them. So I'm aware of changes in finances for people, you know, um, needing to be more attentive to our budgets for a lot of different people and families. And then I've also heard, on this health side of it, how many of us are just dealing with like our thoughts around everything going on, staying on track day to day with the routines that we had in place around exercise and health, and how we can stay healthy through this whole time. So I was kind of rolling all of this around in my mind, like, how can I best support people right now? And I realized that spring had just caught up on me, and I was going to do a detox program. I did one in January called the Vibrant Health Reset. And I was going to do it again and reorganize it for springtime, because the January one was focused on doing something like that in the middle of winter. And with everything happening and everything that was changing in my home and with my family too, I just forgot about it. And it just kind of came back up for me last week. And I thought, you know what? I got to do a detox, and I need to offer something for free for everyone who's in the same boat as, we've been in trying to cut back on our budget and figure things out. And so I'm going to share that with you. The Vibrant Health Reset, I'm excited about it. We're going to do it from May 5th to the 15th. And it's also something that you can do on your own. We'll just have more group support doing it together from the 5th to the 15th. And then I also do one-on-one appointments. So if you are wanting, this is the other thing, is I have some clients who haven't had a change in their employment or anything like that, but all of a sudden they're at home, working from home, realizing that I actually have time to do all this. And I've heard from a lot of my clients that they are really happy that they decided to jump into a functional medicine process right now while they're at home, because it takes a lot of effort to initiate diet and lifestyle changes. And so they're able to like focus that time on that right now. So that's another way I can support you. And obviously then just free webinars and talks on different topics. So if there is a topic that you'd like to learn more about, let me know and I will plan that. So as far as one-on-one support, I always offer a complimentary 30-minute consult. Here's where you can book that if you've never done that with me before, or you're not a current client. You can book that at bit.ly/book-with-Brooke. And I'd be happy to jump on a Zoom call or a phone call and spend 30 minutes, giving you some tips and insight into whatever you have going on and what your goals are. If you want to jump into a case review appointment, and I should have said this at the beginning, for those of you that don't know, I do functional nutrition. So I do functional medicine, lab testing, and when I meet with someone for the first time, I'll do a case review where I get a whole lot of information from you. I get an idea of what you're eating, what your life looks like, what your goals are, what your health conditions are, and then I will go through and make specific lab recommendations. We can decide together what we order, and we'll get those ordered and then do a lab review. And then I lay out very specific protocols and plans and help you as much as you need with recipes and kind of coaching or anything that you need to help implement those changes. So throughout this time, this will be at least for the next month, is a $50 discount on a case review appointment. And usually I put a link if I'm going to do that for a week, but I'm just going to kind of offer that every time I do a webinar. So if that's of interest, or someone that's been thinking about jumping into a functional medicine kind of approach for their health, you can let them know that I'm offering a discount right now. All right, and then here's the info on the Vibrant Health Spring Reset. So first of all is that it's going to be free if you don't want to add on detox supplements. So that will include a menu plan with recipes and Zoom meetings to support you as you work through the 10 days. We'll also have a Facebook group to share ideas and get support. And all you need to do is just email me to enroll. Like I said, we'll start May 5th, so I'll be giving you more info in the days leading up to that. And this detox can be what you want it to be. So I'm going to talk about food. I'm going to talk about meals. But it can also be like a a mindfulness detox, right? We're going to talk about all of the lifestyle factors in the initial meeting. We'll spend time talking about what we do with our thoughts on a day-to-day basis and our exercise and all of that. And I'll give you some tools for that. So if you just want to kind of improve your habits and stay on track, feel free. It doesn't have to be that you're like doing a strict detox, because everybody's having a different experience right now. And we all kind of, I think, just need to, this is true all the time, but just address our health where we're at. And there's no judgment from me. I'm happy to support you in whatever way would be most helpful for you. So feel free to email me if you want to join. This is the pricing if you want to add on the detox supplements. I always do this when I do a detox, and it does really improve, I should say it improves the processes going on in the body, because we know we're getting those nutrients needed for detox. And I can really tell in my symptoms. In fact, I would say on the comprehensive, the first time I did it, I had to go a little slow on it. And do a lot of like the hydrotherapy and showers. The last time I did it, I felt great the whole way through. And so depending if you've detoxed, if you've never done a detox before, I would probably start with the basic and start there. If you're really healthy though, you can probably handle it and you could do the comprehensive. So basically the basic is everything that I'm doing for free. And what you're paying for is a detox shake that has those nutrients necessary for phase 1, 2, and 3 detox. So you're just supporting those pathways in your body. There's also some protein in it, so you can kind of spend a little less money on foods that have protein and use that twice a day instead, and eat it with like a whole bunch, just drink that and then have a plate full of veggies and, and whatever else you're putting in your meals. The comprehensive has another product along with the shake called Push Catch Liver Detox. It's by Quicksilver Scientific, which is a company that also does lab testing for heavy metals, and they make awesome products. And that has 2 products within it, the Push Catch, and one is a liver sauce. And so it helps with bile flow, and you take a teaspoon of it an hour before you're gonna eat. And then 30 minutes later, you take the binder. So instead of just like, let's release toxins in the body, and then they're just floating around and we're not actually excreting them, the Push Catch helps to release them, and then it helps to bind them up and remove them from the body. So those are those 2 options if you'd be interested in that. And you can sign up at those links right there. All right. So I'm excited to do that with you in May. And between now and then, I will do some more webinars. If you have any questions, you can post them here. Any comments, let me know. It's been fun. And I hope that let's see, what day is it? Wednesday. So it's hump day. We're in the middle of the week. But nobody like knows what day it is anyway. So I guess it doesn't really matter. Keep having people tell me that. And that happens for me too. All the days sort of like blend together. One person told me, I did a talk with Tim Crow and his team at Move Right, which is a gym that I partner with a lot. And they were saying, he said it feels like a never ending weekend, right? So it's just like this ongoing weekend. You are welcome. And I will also every Wednesday around 3 p.m. be on Instagram. Here's my Instagram here with Dr. Ashley Broombaugh, who is a chiropractor that I've connected with for a long time over the years and kind of partnered with on different things. And we're just going to be doing a fun like health chat / funny / whatever else is going on in your life. Let's just chat about it on Instagram on Wednesday afternoons. So you can join there too if you would like. All right. Have a good rest of the week. Thanks for being here.